across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
There you are. Good evening and welcome to the Political Asylum right here on Talk. I'm Kevin O'Sullivan and I'll be your host for 3 thrilling hours of news, views and dynamic debate all the way to 10 o'clock. You know the drill. Get involved, get on the show, get on the phone and call me on 0344499 1000 or you can WhatsApp voice note me on the same number and I promise to play your message out. That's a guarantee. It's Monday, March the 17th. Here's what's coming up. Now that Britain has finally started rejecting the odd asylum seeker, as opposed to letting the vast majority stay, they just keep on lodging their appeals, the backlog just keeps on getting longer, and the Gormless government just keeps on using more and more expensive hotels. The astronomical bill for which will soar, we are now warned, to £1.5 billion this year. And rising. There are now nearly 48,000 migrants waiting for a decision on whether they can stay, nearly all of them enjoying extended stays at luxury hotels. Isn't it about time we put a stop to this utter madness? 0344499 1000. How many appeals are they allowed? It just seems to me they apply to stay, they're rejected, they appeal. Their appeal is rejected, they appeal again. Their appeal is rejected, they appeal again. They just keep on appealing until finally they're not rejected. We should put a limit on how many times they're allowed to appeal. In my world, that number would be 0. But okay, allow them one appeal. Not 10, it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, in related news, more than 1 million foreign migrants are now living on benefits as Britain's welfare crisis spirals out of control. As Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall bids to slash the UK's grotesque £319 billion a year handouts bill. £319 billion. That's our welfare bill every year. Unbelievable. Starmer faces a furious rebellion from bleeding heart Labour MPs who think that the government's job is to take hard-working citizens' tax money and give it to the poor and underprivileged who can't or won't work. I don't mind the can't. It's the won't that worries me. Let's face it, a lot of these people on disability benefits are swinging the lead. They're not telling the truth. And doctors are just signing them off. Assessors are signing them off on the phone. We've got a real problem here. Now, with 1.3 million people getting state benefits for conditions like depression and anxiety, Health Secretary Wes Streeting says the problem here is over-diagnosis of mental health conditions. Is he right? 0344499 1000. And why are 1 in 5 of all new cars in Britain given pretty much free to disability claimants? Why do you get a free motor if you've got mental health problems? 0344499 1000. 1 in 5. Every one new car in 5 goes to our benefits system and will be handed to people claiming disability. PIP, they call it. I mean, there's something wrong there, isn't there? And this company called Motability is the company that runs this charity called the Motability Foundation, in league with our welfare system, in league with our government. It is sitting on billions and billions and billions of pounds, handing out free cars left, right and centre. What is going wrong? 0344499 1000. Moving on, with critics calling for a probe into his £250,000 worth of travel expenses, Jet Set Speaker Sir Lindsay Hoyle is at the centre of a new row over a parliamentary security pass he organised for a rich Gibraltarian businessman he appointed as his foreign advisor. The same businessman who underwrote several of Sir Lindsay's all-expenses-paid jaunts to the Rock, where for some reason the Speaker is Chancellor of the local university. No one knows why. Also, a portrait of Hoyle hanging in Westminster's corridors of power cost taxpayers £36,000. Why? Isn't it about time this guy was properly investigated? MPs are terrified to talk out. They never criticise the Speaker. But we have to pay for him. It's about time he was properly investigated. Do you agree? 03444991000. Also on tonight's busy agenda, a defiant Nigel Farage leads Reform UK's revival, announcing that his party will field candidates in every council seat at the local elections on May the 1st. And also on that day, we expect there to be the by-election in Runcorn after Mike Ainsbury, the former Labour representative there, was forced to step down due to his propensity for beating up constituents, or at least one constituent. He got a suspended sentence. He's going. That seat is up for grabs, and it looks like Reform could do it, which will be an incredible turnaround, because right now Labour's majority there is over 14,000. Massive majority. Looks like Reform could overturn it. Meanwhile, in a press conference today, Nigel Farage, who took no questions, dismissed the Rupert Lowe affair as a Westminster bubble story. Is he right? And if you're a Reform supporter, do you agree with Nigel's firm rejection of Rupert's call for mass deportations? 0344 499 1000. Plus, those free driving lessons for migrants who broke into Britain illegally continue apace, and the council, who forked out a staggering 20,000 quid, or more than 20,000 quid, on lessons and tests, are proud of their record. That's a Tory council. What chance do we have? What chance do we stand when Conservatives behave like Lib Dems? 0344 499 1000. They've swallowed the woke virus. They're not really Tories. That is a profound Tory council in Kent, it is. Kent. They have a serious Tory majority. They're handing out freebies like they're the Green Party or the Lib Dems, and they're proud of it. Come on. Later on, I'll go live to Folkestone for the latest on this disgraceful waste of public money. Also, why is village busybody Linda Snell in BBC radio soap The Archers fasting for Ramadan? Seriously, I kid you not. She's a local church busybody, do-gooder. Followers of the soap will know who Linda Snell is. She's about as un-Muslim as they come. And yet she's fasting for Ramadan. She's not Muslim. She's doing it to show support and solidarity for the Islamic community. Yeah, that's realistic, isn't it? The Barmy Beeb's most ludicrous woke plotline since the EastEnders pub, the Queen Vic, staged its EU night so that all those down-to-earth cockneys could protest against Brexit. What a load of total crap. 0344 499 1000. Not forgetting the decolonisation of Shakespeare's Stratford-on-Avon birthplace amid fears the Bard's plays encourage white supremacism. Hey? I'm just sick of this rubbish. 0344 499 1000. And finally, Kinsey Schofield, live from LA on the real-life soap opera surrounding Harry's wife, Meghan. All that and so much more. So don't go anywhere. Stick with me right here, right now on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. Let's spend Monday night together. And for the first hour, a warm welcome. He's been in the news all of last week, perhaps this week as well. But we'll address different issues for the next hour or so. It is the chairman of the Great British Pack, Ben Habib. Welcome, Ben.
Good evening, Kevin. Good to see you.
Always a pleasure. We will get to your favourite subject, reform, later on in this hour. But let's not burden ourselves with it right now. I want to get your
Good.
thoughts on some more general issues, and I know the first one is one that concerns you and me and millions of British citizens very, very much. This is about another aspect of our spiralling migrant crisis, which gets worse in every way, every single day. This is asylum seekers' appeals. Now, this is a kind of awkward situation. Until 2 or 3 years ago, we allowed 75% of all asylum seekers who put in an application to stay. 75% succeeded. This is against something like 30% in France and 12.5% in Germany. So we were the biggest soft touch actually in the world, never mind about Europe, but certainly in Europe, 75%. So to be fair, successive governments have tried to do something about this. So in 2022, the 75% was reduced to 67%. And in 2023, it went down to 47%. Now, in other words, the more rejections there were, the more appeals there are. So I would question why we're still allowing 47%, but it is considerably fewer. It's a considerably smaller number of success rates than we used to give. And what that's resulted in, Ben, is just these people, they get their applications rejected, so they just immediately appeal. And then when it gets rejected again, they appeal again. And when it gets rejected again, they appeal again. There seems to be no limit to the amount of times that these people can appeal against being rejected for their asylum. And they carry on doing it until inevitably, sometimes after 10 rejections, they're finally allowed to stay. Well, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, she says that she's going to try to put a cap on this because at the moment each appeal is taking us 46 weeks. She wants to introduce a statutory time limit of 24 weeks. Well, good luck with that. I mean, I hope she succeeds, but I very much doubt it. I think that what she should be doing is saying, right, you get one appeal, or a maximum 2, and then that's it. You can't keep appealing. Meanwhile, the Refugee Council warns us because of this asylum seeker appeal catastrophe. Appeals now have soared. The number of appeals in the last 2 years have soared by 500%. And the Refugee Council is warning us that because this is entailing the use of more and more hotels, there are 8,000 more migrants in hotels than there were when the Labour government came in the beginning of July. Labour government, of course, pledging will stop the use of hotels. There's 8,000 more in hotels. Something like 48,000 migrants, asylum seekers, waiting for decisions. And it's getting worse and worse and worse. You know, so the government, once again, is doing nothing about it. One thing they must do, they must keep bringing down the number of approvals, the rate of approvals, because 47% is still too ridiculously high. And then I would suggest, really importantly, urgently and soon, a cap on the number of times these people are allowed to appeal, because the way it stands now, getting rejected means nothing to them. Their immigration lawyers just go, oh, sorry, just put in another appeal. Oh, I've been rejected again, I'll put in another appeal. That's all they do. This system is, not fit for purpose, doesn't do it credit. It is dysfunctional on an epic scale.
I couldn't agree more. I'd go slightly further, I think, Kevin. I would say that anyone who entered the country illegally should not be allowed to apply for asylum. They should be detained and then they should be deported. There should be no room for decriminalizing the criminal activity of crossing our borders without our permission. It's as simple as that. And the notion that, the Labour Party don't even call them illegal migrants, they call them irregular migrants. You know,
If only they were, Ben. They're very, very regular. They come out of the over at the rate of about 500 a day.
500, absolutely. And you know, we've hijacked ourselves in the debate because by calling them irregular migrants, by calling them asylum seekers, we give them an air of moral correctitude. And therefore, we're off to a losing wicket, if you like, at day one. The other thing that I think gets lost in the debate is even when an asylum application is rejected, these people are given a right to remain in the country for a period of time, a year, 2 years, 3 years, affording them the ability to make the appeals to which you refer. And so the system goes on and on and on. And of course, behind all of this is the European Convention of Human Rights, the European Court of Human Rights, and all the various other bodies to which appeals can be lodged. And remember, the ultimate arbiter here is not the British judicial system. The ultimate arbiter here is a black box based in Strasbourg over which we, the British people, have no influence. Our government has no influence, and they decide what happens in this country. Now, if you have a foreign court deciding which people can stay in the United Kingdom ultimately, you actually don't have a sovereign state because it is your own ability to control your borders that defines sovereignty at its most basic level. So what we're seeing here with, you know, the way you so brilliantly described it, Kevin, is actually the setting aside of the nation state of the United Kingdom through a process where we accept people coming to this country illegally have a right to apply to stay here. And then we accept the adjudication of foreign courts to determine whether or not they can stay here. And en route to that, of course, we're doing huge economic and cultural damage, including damage, I think, to the security of our civil society by having people in this country about whom we know nothing, who are sponging off our state. Let's just call it for what it is, sponging off our state. The total cost, you mentioned a 1.5 cost of putting them in hotels. Total cost of keeping migrants fed, medically looked after, provided with dentistry, provided with cash in their pockets, laptops, taken to cricket matches, given cars, given this, that, and the other. The total cost is about 8 to 10 billion pounds a year.
I can tell you exactly what. Well, we've on something called the Asylum Support Scheme. We have British taxpayers have footed the bill for £6.6 billion worth of basically free gifts and presents for our illegal migrants, people who broke into the country illegally in the past 5 years. This is, as you say, it's things like trips to the zoo, tours around the local football stadium, trips to the cricket, free driving lessons, free driving tests, and not to mention, of course, the standard issue, free dentistry, free doctors, free lawyers, free food, and 45 quid a week. Why is it, Ben? We're going to go to break in a second, but the last question before we leave this tricky subject. You're right about the ECHR. You know, we should leave. It should be the first thing we do.
Yeah.
But Germany is a member of the ECHR as well. Why is it that Germany only allows 12.5% of its asylum applications to succeed, and we used to allow 75% until 3 years ago, and now still allow easily the most in the world, 47%. Why is that?
I'm going to answer that question with another question. Why is it that the United Arab Emirates has 5 Islamic groups that it proscribes, which are not proscribed in the United Kingdom? We have lost the plot in the United Kingdom. And if there's time after the break, I'd like to talk about a senior Pakistani law enforcement officer, member of the intelligence community in Pakistan, who was telling me that they would take back the Pakistani criminals who've been found guilty of gang raping young British girls, but for the fact that human rights in Western civilization has gone mad. And there's been no application from the United Kingdom to Pakistan to take back these criminals. But they would gladly take them back, incarcerate them, and give them a dose of Pakistani prison, taste of Pakistani prisons.
But we won't do that because that would be that's against their human rights, right? I'll tell you what, Ben.
The point he made, I just want to say, point he made, which was so pertinent, is we're protecting the rights of the criminals and we're not protecting the rights of the victims. We look at the criminals and say we're going to protect you, and we don't protect the victims. And that applies to civil society. Who is the victim of illegal entry to this country? The victim is civil society in this country. The British citizens are the victims of the assault on our country by illegal migration, which our governments will not get a grip of. And it's completely topsy-turvy.
Totally agree. Now, hold these thoughts for about another, what are we talking about, another half an hour when we'll come around to the tricky topic of deportations. The next up, though, we're going to talk about our domestic benefits crisis, which I also think you'll have some interesting things to say about. But we will get onto your topic later in this hour, Ben. So I'm still with Ben Habib, chairman of the Great British PAC. We're going to go to break now. We'll come back in a little while and talk about our benefits crisis meltdown.
And obviously to promote Shakespeare, to preserve properties where tourists would come who are presumably interested in Shakespeare and perhaps might even appreciate Shakespeare. And therefore, this is another example of an organization that has been tempted into undermining its own purpose. I mean, they're actually staging Bollywood dance workshops.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I'm still with Ben Habib. Ben, let's talk about our domestic benefits crisis, which is very serious. Starmer's facing a furious rebellion from his bleeding heart Labour MPs who are objecting to the Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall's bid to slash this state, the British state's grotesque welfare bill. Do you know how much it is every year? £319 billion. £319 billion. And it's rising. Also, we give more than 1 million foreign nationals, migrants who came here, are now on benefits. They're receiving as much as 7.5 billion in universal credit. And we have disability payments are off the scale now, particularly due to mental health. Now, the Health Secretary, Wes Streeting, says the problem here is overdiagnosis. And he's recruiting 8,500 mental health experts to assess claimants more rigorously. But as things stand, 1.3 million people of working age are getting state handouts for mental health conditions like depression and anxiety. 44% of disability payments are for mental problems. And Wes Streeting says we've got to crack down on that. And it turns out that a lot of people who get this PIP, this personal independence payment, are getting free cars. 815,000 lucky people got free motors from the government last year. That's an increase of 170,000 from the year before. This means that 1 in 5 new cars in Britain is essentially bought by the government and handed to people on disability welfare. This is just badly wrong, isn't it? This is out of proportion. This is huge. This is grotesque. Quite clearly, way too many people are getting way too much free stuff out of this government. I mean, nobody objects to genuinely disabled people, mental or physical, getting what a decent society should give them. Enough money to live, maybe a car in some circumstances, although I can't for the life of me work out why someone with mental health problems would need particularly a car. Physical, maybe. Mental, I don't know. 815,000 free cars given out to claimants last year. The budget, the expenditure now best part of £320 billion a year. Disability claiming out of control. This is chaotic, isn't it?
So that 320 billion bill includes universal credit and includes welfare payments and everything. So that's, just to put that into context, we spend about 50 billion on our national defense. So it's 6 times what we spend on our security. And it's a nation completely out of control. The government spends about a trillion a year. That's roughly the government's budget. So 30% of the budget is going on welfare, universal credit, and so on. And you mentioned 1.3 million people on welfare. Actually, there are 3 million people claiming universal credit who are not even looking for a job. And I just want to talk about universal credit for a second. There are 7.2 million, last time I looked, people on universal credit. There are about 31 million people in the British workforce. So around 25% of the British workforce, if it were working, is actually on universal credit. And 3 million of those 7.2 million are not even looking for a job, Kevin. They're not even looking for a job. And they're claiming mental health issues and whatever. And without wishing to sound harsh, I cannot accept for a moment that 10% of the British workforce are so mentally challenged by mental health issues that they can't get to work. I don't buy it. We all suffer from anxiety. We all fear for our futures, increasingly so with the state of the country and the state of our security and so on, increasingly. But that does not mean you're entitled to state handouts. And what we've created is a culture of dependency. We have replaced aspiration with dependency. We've replaced wealth creation with wealth redistribution. We've done it incredibly well, and nothing could have accelerated this process more, of course, than lockdowns and the massive handouts that were given to people during lockdown. creating the habit of not working, staying at home, and being paid something. And the other problem, I think, that lies at the heart of all of this is a taxation system and a system of governance as far as the private sector is concerned, which doesn't make it pay to work. So, if you are in work, you get taxed very, very highly on the very meager earnings that you have. We are being left behind in terms of earnings growth by the United States, by Canada, Australia, and our peer group. And in terms of taxation, whatever you earn is being taxed at a post-World War II high. And so when you have a combination of low wages with high taxation and a very generous benefit system, you're bound to be incentivized not to work. And you create a vicious cycle. And so people, instead of being in the workplace, earning money and paying taxes into the exchequer, remove themselves from the workplace and take benefits instead. So instead of paying taxes, they become takers. And that is the end of the British economic ecosystem. Instead of having a positive spiral for growth, we've got a negative spiral going into a broken labor market and an economy which can't recover. And we've got to now, I'm afraid, be very tough on benefits, very tough on welfare, and we've got to also change completely the approach that we've got to economic management. We've got to reduce taxes for the working class dramatically. We've got to reduce taxes and regulations on businesses so they can make money and employ people. And it is a two-pronged attack economically. And of course, the third thing that we've got to do is stop migration. We are taking into this country not highly skilled foreigners who bring something to add to our economic ecosystem and our culture. We're taking into this country mass unskilled labor.
Yeah, and more than 1 million of them are now on full benefits. So they've come into this country, most of them probably illegally, but probably not all of them. And they come here and basically just start claiming benefits. And we've got more than 1 million foreigners, migrant foreigners, are now getting full benefits. Reflect on that, Ben. Also, the terrifying statistic that 1.2 million under 25s are now on benefits, mostly for mental health. And 1 in 4 of them is considering not ever working in their entire lives. And don't forget, these people who are, as you say, they're talking about anxiety, stress, depression, they are getting signed off for life. Assessors are signing them off for life, saying, yeah, you're okay, you will get benefits for the rest of your life, you never need to go to work, I have assessed that you deserve this, on the phone. They don't even see them. This is ridiculous. It's got to stop.
Yeah. I mean, this nanny state has become a wet nurse, and I've been saying this for a while. We've lost the plot. And I think you're absolutely right, Kevin, by the way, to bring attention to the number of young people who are not working. Because if you leave education and you don't go into the workplace, you go on to benefits, you've never developed a work ethic. You don't understand what it means to go out and earn your wages. And that means you will probably never do it. That's when you've got to be driven into the workplace. And of course, when you're young, you get lower wages because you're, less valuable to an employer. So the gap between what you can earn and what you can get on benefits is very, very small. And so you're drawn into the benefit system. You're pushed that way and you're drawn into it. And it's doing huge damage to our economy. We're creating millions and millions of people who simply don't know what it means to work. And it's a massive burden on those of us who are.
I know. Can I get a quick word from you, Ben? Because we're going to have to move on in just a second. But on this free car racket, the system is called Motability. Officially, it's the Motability Foundation, which is the charity, if you like, the vector through which the government hands out free cars or heavily subsidised cars to people on benefits, usually disability allowance, right? So that's Motability Foundation, but it's actually run by a private company called Motability Operations. This private company is owned by Barclays, HSBC, Lloyds and the NatWest. And it is working on a turnover of £7 billion a year, is sitting on a cash surplus of £4 billion, and is responsible for the purchase and handing out, I guess, of 1 in every 5 new cars in Britain. There's something badly wrong here, isn't there?
Well, I mean, it's brilliant if you're one of those banks, because your client is the government.
Yeah.
So you're assured your payment. You're making 7 billion a year. I bet they're making something like 1.5 billion profit on that, no problem, with no risk. They're just financing the purchase of cars, and then they're handing over these for nothing at no cost to these claimants. And I mean, you know, we talk about the need to cut the winter fuel allowance for the elderly. We talk about the need to cut welfare state, cut benefits and everything else. But how can the country afford this? It's absolutely madness. We can't afford it. We've got an economy that isn't growing. We've got a population that is growing because of immigration. We've got massive burdens on our public sector, you know, from NHS through to housing to schooling, you name it, it's broken. And we've got a system that rewards people who aren't working. It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, now you get a free car as well. And by the way, one of the reasons I suspect that the government's pretty laissez-faire about Motability Operations is that it makes the car sales look better than they actually are. So you've got this huge alleged charity, although my bet is someone's making some serious money here, snapping up 20% of all new cars, and then handing them out free. You don't get them quite free. You have to hand over some of your PIP payments. And if you hand over enough of a down payment, you can put a down payment. You can get things like BMWs and things like that.
But it's still free, Kevin, isn't it? If
yeah,
you're handing
it's
over
ridiculous.
PIP payments,
It is ridiculous.
Money you got from the state. Yeah,
it's ridiculous. So let's go to break now, Ben. And when we come back, I want to talk about Mr. Speaker Lindsay Hoyle. It's going to be a pleasure to talk to you about it, because you're not a sitting MP and you may have the guts to be honest about this situation, which is more than a single MP has at the moment. Not a single MP will talk out against Sir Lindsay Hoyle, and they damn well ought to. We will reveal why after these messages.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
In that House of Ill Repute that we call the House of Commons, there are, I think, 650 MPs. And there's the Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, who is also an MP. He's a Labour MP for a northern constituency, but he's also the Speaker. In 2 years, Ben, he stands accused of pretty much splashing out £250,000 worth of taxpayers' money in expenses on luxury globetrotting to various glamorous destinations. In Los Angeles and Australia, he spent thousands of pounds on chauffeur-driven limousines. When he went to the Caribbean, to Montserrat, he even chartered a private jet. He went to the Cayman Islands, he went to Singapore. You name it, he went there. Everywhere, every time, flying first class or business class, staying in hotels that cost as much as £900 a night, routinely charging taxpayers £300, £400 for dinner, taking with him 3 to 4 staff, often to Gibraltar, funnily enough, where he is the Chancellor of the University of Gibraltar. God knows why, but he is. Now, he's been there 4 times. It subsequently emerged that he took his wife on at least 2 of these trips, one to Gibraltar, another to Los Angeles. He claims it was all a big above board, but he did have to, quote, amend his records to make sure they reflected who paid for what. Now, I think we're owed an explanation for this. Why does the Speaker need to go abroad 19 times in 2 years? You know, they say, oh, fact-finding missions. Give me a break. Give me a break. This guy's enjoying nice trips to glamorous places, living high on the hog on expenses. We're paying for it. I want to know what's going on here. Now, he stands accused of wrongly handing a full parliamentary security pass to Gibraltar's former representative in London, a guy called Albert Poggio, who's also a very successful, wealthy businessman. Now, Albert apparently underwrote several of Hoyle's all-expenses paid trips to the Rock Hotel, the luxury hotel on Gibraltar. He got him in this pass, old Hoyle, by appointing him his foreign advisor in 2021. Why does the Speaker need an appointed foreign advisor? Now, critics say we need a probe into this guy's activities. I think there's a serious case for saying this man has been abusing his position. This man has been wasting taxpayers' money to afford himself a luxury, jet-setting, globe-trotting lifestyle, glamorous in itself. There's a case to say that. We need an investigation. Can we find a single MP or minister or Secretary of State to suggest that perhaps we ought to look into this? No, Ben, we can't.
I'll tell you one MP who'll do it.
Go on.
Rupert Lowe. He's given up his salary to charity. He'll have a go.
Hasn't done it yet. This has been going on for about 2 months. He hasn't done it yet.
I will speak to Rupert straight after I'm off air and ask him to put a question in on the Speaker. But, you know, this is a very serious issue. The Speaker is the chairman of the House of Commons. He's the adjudicator of processes in the Commons. He is the one you go to. If you've got a complaint about another MP's behaviour, he's the one you go to and you say, you know, Mr. Hoyle or whatever they call each other, so-and-so has been up to so-and-so, can you please have a look at it? So this man is responsible for the good governance and the practices of the Commons, and he's on the take. And that is very serious. And I think you do him, I think you're being too kind, Kevin, when you say there should be an investigation. I think he should be blooming sacked on the spot. There is no excuse for this guy to be spending £250,000 on foreign jaunts and giving passes to the Commons to, people in Gibraltar. He should just be sacked and got rid of.
Well, I'm with you in spirit, Ben. But in all fairness, this guy Hoyle. He's made no efforts to particularly explain himself. I know this because we first broke this story. I say we broke it. There were a few paragraphs in the Mail on Sunday, I think it was, back in December. I thought, hello. So we did the story and got this huge pompous letter from his office saying that I obviously didn't understand the role of the Speaker. And there's me thinking, oh, so the role of the Speaker is to fly first class round the world, staying in flash hotels, having lovely meals, always in nice places. He never goes to Siberia or Belgium. It's always the Cayman Islands.
Why is he going abroad? His job is in the Commons. Yeah, it's a domestic job.
Exactly. So I gave him the chance to explain there, but instead he gave me a rollicking, telling me that or his people did, I didn't understand his role. I think, Sir Lindsay, I do, and therein lies your problem. What I'm saying is he still hasn't explained himself, nor has he had the opportunity to explain himself, and an investigation, a full investigation into his activities, would afford him the chance to tell the people why it is he's spending so much of our money on his glamorous jaunts. That we need an investigation, and we need one now, but we're not going to get one the way things are going, Ben, because every single MP so far has been scared to speak out. How dare they?
Yeah. And there's another issue I think that Hoyle needs to be challenged on, and that is him shutting down debate in the Commons about the Southport protests that took place in Axel Rudacabana. Do you remember he told parliamentarians that they couldn't raise any questions on Axel Rudacabana because that might compromise, this is the Southport killer for those people who, it might compromise his case. But actually there were very legitimate
That's rubbish, by the way. That is legally rubbish. Starmer knew it, and so did Lindsay Hoyle. Rubbish. It's absolute rubbish.
And so Lindsay Hoyle was used by Starmer for his own political motives.
Yeah, and I've said this before, Ben. People say, look, he's a very good speaker, studiously unbiased. Rubbish. He's always doing Starmer's bidding, always.
Absolutely. I think he's a terrible speaker. He should never be the story. He should be getting on quietly with his job. He's got an ego the size of, well, one individual that comes to mind who perhaps we'll talk about in a second.
Yes, indeed. But just to say before we move on now, John Bercow, I'm sure, like me, you're no fan of him, the previous speaker, £250,000 in foreign expenses. It took him 10 years to rack that amount up. Lindsay Hoyle did it in 2 years.
Bercow was only going to Brussels and back because he was trying to undermine Brexit.
Yeah, indeed.
Hoyle has to go further afield.
Yeah, well, indeed. I think Hoyle's just going after to enjoy himself, but that's just my opinion. And why shouldn't we say this, considering Sir Lindsay doesn't seem to want to talk about this? I think he should be made to talk about it, and an official investigation into his expensive activities at our expense. We need answers. Let's stay where you are, Ben, and next up, your favourite subject, reform. That next, stay tuned.
and obviously to promote Shakespeare, to preserve properties where tourists would come who are presumably interested in Shakespeare and perhaps might even appreciate Shakespeare. And therefore, this is another example of an organization that has been tempted into undermining its own purpose. I mean, they're actually staging Bollywood dance workshops.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Okay, now let's talk about the press conference today that Reform UK staged. Wasn't much of a press conference because Nigel Farage didn't take any questions, but he did announce that Reform were bouncing back, Ben, from the Rupert Lowe affair. And that they will field candidates in every single ward in the local elections on May the 1st, in the council elections. He also revealed that 29 councillors, many of them Conservative, some of them Labour, have defected to Reform, some of them Lib Dem. Strange defection.
Lib Dem.
Strange defection, that. And he also says that the Rupert Lowe saga was a Westminster bubble story. I mean, in terms of the polling, you've also got the Runcorn by-election coming up. The polls look good for Reform there. I mean, if Reform win Runcorn, it's a big if, but if they do, and then they do quite well at the remaining council elections that the Labour government have allowed to actually happen, I think the Rupert Lowe affair will be consigned to the scrap heap of Reform's history. Don't you agree?
I don't agree.
I knew you wouldn't. I knew you wouldn't.
I don't agree because I think there's fundamentally something very, very wrong that's taken place with Rupert Lowe. It is normal Reform UK practice under Zaya Yousaf and Nigel Farage, who have a very unhealthy relationship, by the way. I think people should be asking, what is the relationship between Zaya Yousaf and Nigel Farage? How is it that they seem so absolutely linked to each other, and yet the link between Farage and Tice, which should be strong, leader and deputy leader, doesn't seem to exist? You know, we see Yousaf with Farage all the time. And today there was some speculation, I'm digressing, but today there was speculation that Zaya Yousaf would be sacked at this press conference. And I said yesterday they wouldn't. There's no chance of Zaya Yousaf being sacked. There is an unholy link between Farage and Yousaf, which Farage and Yousaf should explain. How is it that Yousaf, from political obscurity, became chairman of Reform UK within 11 days?
Ben, can I just interrupt you for a second, because we've finally found some footage from the press conference, very relevant. So we better have a quick listen to Nigel now, because I've got long to go. So this is Nigel Farage earlier today.
One of the things that we lack in Reform is experience. A lot of our people that have become part of the 400 branches that we've set up that Zia mentioned, a lot of them have never been in politics before. We need some old lags. We need some people who've been in council and know what they're doing. And that's why today I'm delighted to announce that over the course of the last 2 weeks, we have managed to sign up the following people.
He went on, Ben, to say that the bitter Civil War stories were boring. When politicians say stories are boring, it usually means they are fascinating and interesting and compelling to the vast majority of the public. So he's probably not right there. What's going to happen here, though? I mean, Rupert Lowe isn't going back. What is Rupert Lowe going to do?
So I was just going to say what they've done with Rupert Lowe is absolutely outrageous. Instead of just, removing the whip, they've trumped up, as far as I can see, charges. They make it look like he had bullied people in his office. And actually, when we scratched below the surface, there was no accusation against Rupert for any bullying. They've made a complaint to the police that he threatened to use physical violence against Yusuf, something apparently that took place in December, but it took them 3 months to make the complaint. They've set out to destroy Rupert Lowe. So this story isn't going away. And the reason Nigel refused to have any questions in the press conference is because this is not a Westminster bubble problem. This is a problem of very substantial proportions for reform, and he didn't want to have to answer questions on it in the press conference. But Rupert Lowe ain't going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. Nigel Farage, frankly, having crossed that Rubicon, trying to destroy Rupert Lowe, is in a position where we are now going to challenge him.
Can I just ask you, Ben?
Yeah.
We've got about a minute left, minute and a half.
Sure.
We alluded to this earlier. Now, Rupert Lowe stands for mass deportations, which we all know will be very difficult. We understand from polling that something like 60% of the country are quite keen on mass deportations, and 99% of Reform UK voters are keen on mass deportations. How is Nigel Farage going to get away with saying we're not going to do that?
Well, he's not going to get away with it. He's not going to get away with it because it absolutely makes no sense. After all the discussions we've just had this evening, how can anyone how could any sane-minded individual say that people who enter this country illegally should not be detained and deported? But one of the biggest problems this country faces is an absence of borders and the economic, cultural and criminality that exposes us to. The problems that we face are so significantly down to the fact we don't have borders. And yet Nigel, Reform UK, the party that stands apparently for the sovereignty of this country, there can be no sovereignty without borders, is getting up and saying he's not in favour of the mass deportation of illegal migrants.
Ben, I'm going to stop you there. I get it. It's brilliant to talk to you as always. The hour is up. What a great hour. Always a pleasure, mate. That's Ben Habib, the inimitable Ben Habib. But what do you think about all that? 0344 499 1000. And when we come back, much still to come. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk
Welcome back. Now, in a little while, we're talking to Mike Neville, ex-Scotland Yard detective, about the rather alarming fact that 99.5% of criminals don't go to jail. As few as 1 in 200 crimes results in a prison sentence. And this is often in terms of prolific offenders. More than 50 offenders with more than 50 convictions have been spared jail. Check this out, over 50,000 times since 2007. These are people, they end up in the dock. They've got more than 50 convictions to their name. They've done it again. They've broken the law again. And the magistrate or the judge goes, well, you don't have to go to jail. 50 convictions. Was it? We're just giving up on them and just say, well, no matter what you do, he's going to carry on breaking the law. So why bother wasting jail space on him? To stop him. Or her, I should say. Also, we're going to be talking later in this hour. This is a story that has gripped me. Linda Snell, if you're an Archers fan, the long-running agricultural soap on Radio 4, BBC Radio 4, everyday story of country folk. So Linda Snell is the village busybody, you know, the church ward, all that kind of stuff. Christian. Anyway, she's fasting for Ramadan. Anyone know why? It's just unbelievable, isn't it? This is woke BBC script writing, the most pathetically unrealistic plot line. How many sort of middle-class, middle-aged Christian women in rural villages around this country right now do you think are fasting in sympathy for Muslims for Ramadan? How many? I would say 0. And yet, on the BBC soap The Archers, in just one village, there's one woman doing it. Unbelievable. Absolute load of crap. As I said earlier, this is the most ridiculous BBC woke plotline since that pub in EastEnders, the Queen Vic, staged an EU night for those down-to-earth local cockneys to protest against Brexit. They lost millions of viewers for that, and they deserve to. Absolute madmen. Middle-class people rewriting history for what they want it to be as opposed to what it actually is. Also, Shakespeare's birthplace is to be decolonised amid fears that the bard that his plays encourage white supremacism. I don't know what to say. It's just what we've got to stop this rubbish, haven't we? 03444991000. First up, though, now you remember last week we had a hell of a story. Actually, it was thanks to my next guest. He is a fan of the show, tunes in, I think, most nights, and I'm very grateful for that. But he took matters into his own hands. He lives in Folkestone. That is on the front line of the migrant crisis, and he got sick of walking around his hometown and seeing loads and loads of migrants having driving lessons. So he put in a freedom of information request to Kent County Council. Said, how much are you spending on driving lessons, free driving lessons for asylum seekers? And the Kent County Council said £20,143.86. That's last year. 2 years ago, it's like 3,000. 1 year ago, 5,000. Last year, 20,143. So it keeps going up. Kent County Council now says it's proud of this obvious waste of taxpayers' money, and that somehow or other it's legally obliged to provide this service. I bet it's not. Anyway, so this is due to our loyal fan Liam from Folkestone. So I thought, it's about time he came on the show and we had a chat with him. So welcome to the show, Liam.
Hello, Kevin. How are you?
Good to see you. Congratulations on your Freedom of Information request, which absolutely gripped our audience. We got massive engagement on that on social media. Thousands and thousands of retweets. People rightfully annoyed. You've subsequently heard from Kent County Council, who are now saying that A, it's their legal obligation to provide these lessons. Absolutely no, it isn't. Something to do, they say, with children who come over here. And secondly, they're saying, which is interesting, that the money they spend, the £20,000 or the more than 20, comes from central government. Now, I wouldn't put anything past this mad government and this mad country, but in your Freedom of Information request, which I've got a copy of, you said, how much are you spending, Kent County Council, on driving lessons for immigrants, for asylum seekers? They didn't say anything about, because if you think about it, if the central government was giving them that £20,143.86, then technically they didn't spend anything, did they? Except I'm not quite sure that they're being entirely upfront here. I think they're being economical with the truth. They're spending Kent County Council residents' money on all of this, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I just had my council tax bill for the next financial year, and it's gone up 5%. And nowhere on the council tax bill itself does it say services for asylum seekers or asylum-seeking children. Now, this is what really kind of got me really angry, is that I don't know about you, but I wouldn't class a 17-year-old as a child. They're not. They're young adults, if anything.
Yeah.
So for them to double down on this and say it's not from central government, it's not from Kent County Council, it's from central government, is a nonsense in the first instance. But I'm really grateful for you for actually giving me the chance to, break this on talk. Since then, on my YouTube channel, it's just Liam T. It's had over 3,000 views, loads of comments, and the amount of outrage amongst my subscribers that, it's total insanity. That's a general feeling. This is just a magnet, another magnet, given what other councils are spending on, such as, I don't know, DJ skills, for example, or, what else have we got?
We know. DJ skills, driving lessons, driving tests, trips to the local football stadium, trips to the zoo, trips to the cricket, just loads and loads of free stuff that we give them. £6.6 billion in the last 5 years, something called the Asylum Support Scheme. Now, call me controversial, but I thought the kind of basic idea was you tried to set up deterrence to dissuade foreign migrants from illegally breaking into our country. Instead, what do we have? Just this cornucopia of enticements to come here.
Exactly. It's like, for example, you can't. For every, I'm down here in Folkestone. I'm on the front line. Okay, and so I see it every day. Every day, the air sea rescue helicopters up at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning. We are on the front line down here in Kent. And but it's my mum. This is the only reason I started my YouTube channel. Is my mum was a social worker for Kent County Council with unaccompanied asylum-seeking children. And she was, she's not with us now, God rest her soul. She passed away 3 years ago. However, this is the reason why I started my YouTube channel, because she knew, with 2 sons herself, many of these guys are blatantly not children, not under the age of 18. And so this is why I started my channel. Let's see, the thing is, for every migrant that comes across, that's 1 less GP appointment, 1 less dentist appointment, school places, houses. They get free gifts, free phones, free food, free laundry services. They get given rides to prayer at a mosque, etc. And now, like driving lessons, the main sentiment on my channel was that my kids worked on a Saturday job to pay for their driving lessons. What the hell's going on here? It's just a sense of real outrage. And until these free gifts and luxuries and presents and welcoming and rolling out the red carpet, until that stops, it's just going to keep going, Kev.
Yeah, and there seems to be, I'm looking at this story from Kent Online, which is all about us, really. We're all in it. I'm in it and everything. They're talking about us breaking this story. Thanks to you. You thanked me. I want to thank you for your excellent freedom of information request, which bore astonishing fruit, didn't it, to say the least. Now, I'm looking at this story on Kent Online, and Kent County Council seems to be sort of acting like it's its legal obligation to do this, to provide driving lessons to unaccompanied child migrants. Well, first of all, what do they mean by children? I mean, it's obviously a grey area when it comes to these migrants breaking into our countries, because a lot of them claim they're school kids, 15 years old, when they got receding hairlines and beards. So it's a grey area anyway. But I can't imagine for a second that there is any legal obligation for any local council or indeed central government to provide free driving lessons to migrants, to asylum seekers. By the way, Liam, while we're on the subject, Kent County Council made a big thing of saying to you in your Freedom of Information request response, nobody gets this facility, nobody gets free driving lessons or tests until they get official refugee status when they become asylum seekers. Asylum seekers is a temporary condition. Why would we give driving lessons to people who might be kicked out of the country? Is it that we just assume they're all going to be allowed to stay? Probably that, isn't it?
Well, yeah, the majority do get to stay, don't they? But then you think what another kind of sentiment that came out from breaking this story is like, okay, right, so we as taxpayers pay for the lessons, we pay for the tests, then what? Then what happens? Do they get a car? Do they get insured? Do they get petrol? You know, where does it end? It's just we're just scratching at the surface here for the amount of freebies that are handed out. And look, quite rightly, people are annoyed.
Absolutely. I've got the Kent County Council spokesman here who's saying, under the immigration law, Kent County Council is responsible for the care of unaccompanied asylum-seeking children, UAS children, they're called. Fair enough. The courts have been very clear that we cannot treat UAS children differently from other looked-after children. All right, fine. And they are entitled to the same support as every other child in care nationally. We offer our care leavers. Then it goes on to say, then it just says arbitrarily, driving lessons are part of our offer of support for all care leavers, and all support for UAS children is fully funded by the government and not Kent County Council. So are we saying then that this £20,143.86 was all provided by the government? And on what basis does Kent County Council interpret its obligation to underage or young asylum seekers, that obligation includes free driving lessons? On what basis do they say that must include free driving lessons? This is just their decision. And do you know what I find really depressing about this, Liam, is that the Kent County Council is not only a Tory council, it's a Tory council with a vast majority. This is a Conservative county council, and it's acting like Green Lib Dems or the Green Party or communists or something. They're proud of this claptrap.
Yeah, well, one of my subscribers is your namesake, actually. His name's Kevin. He lives in Coventry, and he said Coventry, as Tory council, were doing it 10 years ago. So, how far back does this actually go? It's, well worth investigating.
Well, I'm just looking at myself in this story here. Host Kevin O'Sullivan said on the channel today, this would have been last week, we have to pay for our own driving lessons. Why don't they? Why are we paying for them? Why, when these people break into our country illegally, do we then shower them with gifts? It's crazy, and who is paying for it? Us, you, the British taxpayer. It's an outrage. I couldn't have put it better myself. In fact, I did put it that way myself last week, and that's what I'm quoted on Kent Online. My points still stand. Well, where did they get the idea that it's their job to give free driving lessons and driving tests to illegal migrants. OK, you want to call them asylum seekers. They got refugee status. Where did they get the idea that that's part of their obligation? It just isn't, is it?
Yeah, there's no logic to it. I mean, there would be a logic to it if, for example, they're going into employment, which then says that they're going to stay anyway. But then it's not been guaranteed that they are going to. It boggles my mind, Kevin. It really does.
Tell me about Folkestone, because you said last week, you told me that you sort of saw all these migrants getting driving lessons. So around Folkestone, is it sort of all palpable that the migrants are milling around the town?
Well, yeah. Well, we have. We were never asked this. I don't know. You might remember or heard of Napier Barracks.
Oh yeah, I remember those. Yeah. They're the ones that caught fire at one point, didn't they?
Yeah, it did. That was in the January. They were there 4 months. It happened in August of 2021, I think,
Okay.
2020.
All right.
And that all of a sudden, 450 of these young chaps kind of descended upon into Napier Barracks. There's a big hoo-ha about it that it's not fit, because it's still got the razor wire. It reminds them of a prison, etc. It was set fire to in the January. And they kind of stay there. I've led to believe, because from another Freedom of Information request that I put into their Home Office this time, and about how many abscond, and they're only meant to stay there for 90 days, and they are free to come and go as they please. And if they go off-site, they have to give a contact number, and if they haven't heard from them in 7 days, they're considered as absconded. So there were 19 last year that disappeared. But we've also got 3 hotels along the seafront, complaints of uninvited guests hanging outside of schools. The park opposite Napier Barracks itself, Shorncliffe Park, is a play area strewn with beer cans, barbecue, scorch marks, cigarette butts, whiskey bottles, vodka bottles. The rest is endless. The Tesco, which is directly opposite Napier, which is only about 3-5 minutes walk, constantly shoplifted from. I've got a friend that works there. Folkestone, I mean, I moved here in 2017, and in 7 years, it's just changed. It's not the same place that. I mean, like I said earlier on, woken up night after night after night. Especially, it's the worst in the summer. But it's a lovely town,
I know Folkestone well. I grew up fairly close to Folkestone, near Dover, and it is a nice town. But being gentrified, I understand. But also, you're obviously being infested with migrants as well, which is the story of so many towns, particularly down there in Kent.
Yeah, I know that Bournemouth is really suffering as well. Is one of them. But it's just it seems no sign of stopping. It's not going to stop. Actually, with regard to the figures, if I may just say this, these are that we know about figures, official from the Home Office. It's in the same period from since Starmer was elected to today, really, or yesterday, 27,606. And in the same period for Rishi Sunak, 21,472. So it's a 29% increase over the same period. So smashing the gangs, I don't think that's worked. We've had 4,392 since January the 1st.
So smashing what gangs? They haven't smashed a single gang. Even if they did, wouldn't make any difference, Liam. Listen, Liam, you keep those Freedom of Information requests going in, and you keep posting me about them. We'll get you on again. But thanks again for your great work. You have unearthed what I think is a major scandal. And as Liam pointed out to me last week, you can rest assured there's 5,500 migrants living in Kent. That's one county. So if you extrapolate that across the country, we're spending out undoubtedly, like £1 million a year, something like that, on free driving lessons and free driving tests for people who broke into our country illegally. They should be in jail. Instead, we're giving them free stuff. free driving lessons, free doctors, free dentists, 45 quid a week, free food, free accommodation, free trips to the zoo, free trips to the cricket, free trips to the football. Does it strike you that this country has gone stark staring bonkers, stark staring mad? Let me know what you think. 03444 991 I mean, you know, I'm laughing about it. If I didn't laugh, I would cry. It's really, really infuriating. This country has got to get its act together. This is basket case stuff. It's got to stop. Next up, talking of that, we're going to talk about criminals. 99.5% of our worst criminals don't go to jail. They avoid jail. OK, they're crowded, but these people are committing terrible crimes and getting away with it, basically. 1 in 200 crimes, only 1 in 200 crimes results in a prison sentence. It's just not right. Got to deter people. You know, if you don't send people to prison, they'll keep on offending, won't they? 03444 991 That next, stay tuned.
And obviously to promote Shakespeare, to preserve properties where tourists would come who are presumably interested in Shakespeare and perhaps might even appreciate Shakespeare. And therefore, this is another example of an organization that has been tempted into undermining its own purpose. I mean, they're actually staging Bollywood dance workshops.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In a little while, we're going to be trying to find out why on earth it is that well-known local busybody, village busybody in the Archers, Linda Snell, a church-going Christian, middle-aged woman, you know the type, nosy, sticks a nose into everybody else's business, local gossip, all that. She's fasting for Ramadan. When asked why, she said it's all about the universal human experience. We have to understand how other people, proceed along Earth's highway to understand them. What rubbish! How many other middle-aged Christian women in villages around the country, who live in little villages, Christians, go to church, Christian church. How many other women like Linda Snell do you think in real life are fasting for Ramadan so they can appreciate what it's like, so they can understand the Muslim experience? Give me a break. Give me a break. That next. First up, talking about giving me a break. Give me a break from this. Another day, another reason to believe that basically crime does pay in Britain. 99.5% of criminals, we are now informed, do not go to jail. As few as 1 in 200 crimes results in a prison sentence. More than half the offences last year were committed by less than 10% of prolific repeat lawbreakers. So 10% of, basically dyed-in-the-wall crooks committed 50%, more than 50% of our crimes, and they're all spared jail. Offenders with more than 50 convictions to their names. Imagine standing in the dock, the judge or the magistrate, what's this guy's record? Oh, he's got 50 convictions to his name. Oh, right, well, you've committed another crime, I'm not going to send you to jail. Well, that has happened on more than 50,000 occasions since 2007. Unbelievable. If crime goes unpunished, it will spiral. I know who can confirm that to me. Former Met Police detective, ex-Scotland Yard detective, Mike Neville. That's true, isn't it, Mike? If crime goes unpunished, it will spiral.
It's absolutely out of control, Kevin. And if you look at those stats, what it says is that 17 million crimes are reported each year. So you can imagine if you're poor and you live on a council estate, you're not insured and your house gets turned over, many of those people won't bother reporting the burglary to the police because they'll think, well, I've got no insurance, so there's no point. So we only talk about reported crime, which is a lot less than the real crime. And then, as you said, that the police only charge about 5% of offences. And then out of those, you go out of that 17 million crimes, about 70,000 people are sent to jail. So that's, as you said, 0.5% or 1 in 200. So if you're a criminal and you see, you can steal whatever you want, you can burgle what you want, you can attack who you want, and you've got a massive chance, a 99 out of 100, or more than that, 199 times out of 200 chance of not being sent to prison. And that just sends the wrong message to prolific crooks.
We've got to do something, haven't we, very soon, because when you quite rightly, this is ridiculous. I mean, nearly 100% of criminals don't go to jail. And the idea that 50,000 times since 2007, people have stood in the dock with 50 convictions or more to their names. Think about that. They've been nicked successfully more than 50 times. They're standing in the dock. I don't care what they've done with that kind of criminal record to their name. They need to go to jail. They need to be told.
Yeah, absolutely.
And yet they're not. But, they stand in the dock, 55 convictions to their name, maybe 100 convictions to their name, and judges and magistrates, because they're told by the government prisons are overcrowded, don't send them to jail. This country is becoming a criminal's charter, isn't it?
Well, it's incredible, isn't it? So, firstly, somebody with 50 convictions has probably committed 1,000 crimes, because how many have they not been caught for? That's the first thing. And I've worked with young people in inner cities, helping them. And so I agree that some people deserve a chance, maybe one, two, or even three chances. But when somebody gets their 47th chance, it's time just to lock these people up, because when they're in prison, people tell me prison doesn't work. When they're in prison, they can't burgle your house, attack my wife, or steal goods from my shop while they're incarcerated. And we're told that short prison sentences don't work. So I'll tell you what, let's try long ones, because we've been told for years that, prison doesn't work, they go in and they come out and offend again. What these professors and alleged experts don't tell you, of course, is that these people have had 50 community sentences before they ever go to jail. Yeah. So that tells me that these rubbish community sentences don't work. And having spoken to villains, because I used to interview criminals who used to give me information, there's one thing that criminals fear, and that is being locked up. They don't fear possibly having to do some community work where they don't bother turning up.
Yeah, and the narrative now, Mike, isn't it? It's that, short sentences basically aren't worth it. Well, they are when it comes to middle-class people who are irregular lawbreakers who suddenly find themselves in trouble. You chuck them away for 2 years, they'll never offend again. They will be horrified by their experience. So I reject the notion that all short sentences are a waste of time and there should only be long sentences. There should be sentences of all types, and more people should get shorter sentences, frankly, rather than being allowed to commit crimes 50 times and still not go behind bars.
Well, these hyper-prolific criminals, the ones you refer to, these people who've got 50 or more convictions, they cause abject misery, and they often live on an estate, and they'll be stealing, burgling, assaulting, committing antisocial behaviour. And the people who live on that estate, who just want to live their lives and go to work and look after their kids, they have to endure the misery that these people create. So that idiot being put in prison for, say, 3 or 6 months, that's a respite for the people who are just decent. And the other problem here, of course, is, Kevin, you get to a tipping point, don't you, into society, where obeying the rules is the stupid option. So going to work and paying for stuff in a shop, when you start thinking, well, no, hold on a minute, that guy's just, he just cleared the shelf of all the meat and 3 bottles of champagne, and no one's attempted to stop him, and the old bill aren't going to do anything. People will see that, and more people. You get to a tipping point. As I say, most people obey the law because it's the right thing to do. They don't do it out of fear. It's the right thing to do. But when it becomes the stupid thing to do because everybody else is getting away with it, society starts to break down, and that's an awful thing.
You're exactly right. I mean, the watchword now is don't work, steal stuff, and things will go very well for you. The police will leave you alone. You don't have to go to work. The government will always hand you out money. Everything is going wrong. Before you go, Mike, let's talk about Chief Constable Serena Kennedy. She's the Merseyside police chief who made such a balls up of it in the slipstream in the wake of those awful killings in Southport in the summer. She's the one who presided over the lack of information that was given to the public. She says the Crown Prosecution Service told her she couldn't release information about Axel Rudikabana, the then suspect, now of course doing life in jail for his awful crimes. Frankly, she screwed it up in spades. Anyway, the reason we bring her up is she is now retiring from the force at the end of August. I would have thought that your response to that is good riddance, isn't it?
They definitely need a new chief constable there. As you said, it wasn't just lack of information that was spread about Axel Rudikabana. It was misinformation that was put out. And you know that I've been doing Freedom of Information Act requests, and people have been messing me around. No one's disclosing who put out those angelic schoolboy photographs. So who was responsible for that? And also, she oversaw that ridiculous campaign where Merseyside police stood there with "It's an offence to be in a."
Was that down to her, Mike? Was that down to her?
That's Merseyside police. So that was, again, they had to apologise because, of course, being offensive is not a crime at all. So what we really need, and I've been dealing with the police force today, Hertfordshire, we've got a brand new chief constable who's really pushing things forward. And I've got to say, it's really pleasing to hear that somebody's trying new things. And so hopefully Merseyside police will get a good chief who can push things forward and make the people of Liverpool safe. Because again, we had that young girl murdered in her house by the drug dealer who ran in Liverpool, shot the young girl, murdered her. So the people of Liverpool deserve a better chief constable who's going to drive down crime and make them safer both in their homes and on the street.
Yeah, get a bit of safety on the streets and, you know, I don't know, call me controversial, but just arrest the odd bad guy, you know, lock up the odd criminal, that kind of thing. And when I say criminals, I mean people who steal bicycles and who steal cars and who beat people up in the street, all those things that current coppers seem to think is beneath them. They're not beneath them, and if they don't start prosecuting those kind of crimes, the everyday crimes that affect us all, burglary, then modern policing in Britain is a waste of time.
Because if you look, there's CCTV everywhere now. We've got tracking devices on phones and other things that tell us where they've gone to. There's also people have ring doorbells and dash cams. There couldn't be more evidence. There's far more evidence available now than there was 20 years ago. So there should be far more criminals being put in prison than less. It's quite incredible. The police need to get a grip and use all these new opportunities as well as the old ones to arrest criminals and make us all safer.
Well said, Mike. As always a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time. Mike Neville there, ex-Scotland Yard detective. What do you think? I mean, we've got to do something. 99.5% of criminals don't go to jail. They avoid jail, including the offenders with more than 50 convictions to their names. More than 50,000 times since 2007. People who've committed more than 50 crimes and been convicted, stood in the dock, and judges and magistrates have said, I'm not sending you to jail. I mean, no wonder they've committed more than 50 crimes. They don't get punished. Madness, eh? 03444991000. Talking of which, when we come back, we'll talk about the mad plotline in The Archers, the BBC's soap opera everyday story of country folk. That next, stay tuned.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Now, who recognises this? Take it away. That is, of course, The Archers, BBC Radio 4's soap opera, everyday story of country folk about the village of Ambridge, a fictional village in the heart of traditional Britain. And here's one of the main characters. She's the local busybody, very funny character called Linda Snell. Got a funny accent. Let's have a listen to Linda in action.
And she said, I can't believe it's you. All that was going on. And she said, I know I can't keep you for long, but we live here in Eastbourne, and I've got a 5-year-old son called Charles, who's crazy about Postman Pat. Now, this was the old...
Well, that was the actress who plays Linda Snell talking about her character. I was hoping to get her actual voice, but there you are. But anyway, Linda Snell is a local busybody, and she's now currently, listeners are really thrilled, she's fasting for Ramadan. And we're thinking, well, hang on, she's a Christian. I think she's like a church warden. She's always putting on plays and things at the church hall. So she's, you know, the classic middle-aged, middle-class woman, bit of a busybody, goes to church, all that, bit holier than thou, that kind of judgmental, annoying person that we all know. The one thing she's not is a Muslim. But she's fasting for Ramadan. No one knows why. Well, I think I do. Let's talk with a couple of stories I need to talk to my next guest about, this being the first one. She's a commentator for the New Culture Forum, Amy Gallagher. Welcome to the show, Amy. Thanks for joining us. Now, this is the thing about The Archers is it's got an interesting history. I think it sort of started not long after the war or something. And the idea was it's a kind of an information service originally, an agricultural, so it still has an agricultural advisor. So a lot of the narrative, the drama, revolves around, you know, characters, farmers saying to each other, oh, it's about time, you know, we put the grain in the silos, about time we cut back our hedges and all this kind of stuff. And that is to subliminally pass on information to our real life agricultural community. I mean, a little bit old-fashioned, but they still do a bit of that. No, all right, why not? But what they're clearly doing now, subliminally, is telling us we must all, you know, like fast for Ramadan in order to share the experience and understand our Muslim cousins. I mean, what on earth is going on here?
Yeah, apparently it's time for us to all convert to Islam, apparently. That's the next step in this. This is such an unrealistic storyline, first of all. Christians don't fast for Ramadan because they're Christians. They're not Muslims. People don't tend to do something of another religion to what they are. This is clearly pushing a narrative of kind of multiculturalism, but to the extreme, where it's not just kind of taking an interest in someone else's culture or respecting it or tolerating it. You actually have to participate in it. You have to actually convert to a different religion, basically. And we know that this is just totally unrealistic. You know, I think a lot of women in rural areas would probably be quite concerned about the rise of Islam in this country and the decline,
You're right.
and the decline of Christianity. I don't think they would be just jumping on board and becoming a Muslim. And it is just this I just generally across mainstream media, particularly in dramas, there are more and more storylines where they are pushing this kind of unrealistic stuff, whether it's trans, whether it's just woke, whether it's kind of racial stuff, where it just puts everybody off and everybody knows it when they see it. I don't think people have an issue with a Muslim character or something like that, but you know when there is an agenda being pushed, and it's actually quite offensive. And you know also that it wouldn't be done the other way around. You wouldn't, for example, have a Muslim character who participates in Lent. And if you did, people would complain about it and say, well, why are they having to do that? But when it's this way round, everybody, it seems to be fine.
Well, there's been no mention of Lent in at the Archers, I believe, but lots of mentions of Ramadan. Linda Snell, who actually is a very comical character. I mean, she is literally the classic village busybody, sticking her nose into everybody's business. She's quite judgmental, you know, takes the kind of high moral line that those middle-class, middle-aged churchgoers tend to do in rural areas. Well, her church-going is taking a back seat now because she turned down the opportunity to participate in Shrove Tuesday celebrations because of her fast, and then turned to her husband Robert and left him in no doubt that she expected him to join her on this Ramadan fast. When he turned down a glass of wine over lunch, Linda told him, "I take it from that performance, you are now..." This is the script of The Archers. "I take it from that performance, you are now on board with Ramadan." And why is she on board? Why is she on board with Ramadan? When asked to explain, she said, "Well, I feel the opportunity to expand the human experience develops character and deepens our understanding of our fellow travellers on this earth." I mean, there are middle-aged Christian women like that in every village in Britain, right?
It's ridiculous. It's so unrealistic. And as you said, with Lent, if she is a practicing Christian, she would be giving something up for Lent. Some people do fast for Lent. So the idea that she would get a different experience by adopting Ramadan doesn't even make sense to me. Like, what would she be gaining from it? I mean, what's interesting about this is that she's apparently, I read that she's fasting out of respect for a Muslim family that's in the Archers.
In the village, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a Muslim GP, and she wants to show respect to that family by, you know, following their religion for a certain amount of time. I mean, surely they would see that as quite odd. Like, this person's going way above and beyond. It's almost copying our religion. Like, it's very bizarre. And of course, you know, the Muslim family are an upstanding family. The man is a GP, and there's no issue, and everybody's getting along fine. And we know that actually, at the moment, there's a hell of a lot of tension between different cultures going on. So this is it's a bit of a slap in the face, to be honest, to the reality of our experiences at the moment.
Exactly right. It's the Guardian reading BBC staff turning Britain, his modern history, if you like, into what they want it to be, what they'd love it to be, as opposed to what it actually is. It's the worst woke BBC storyline since a few years back, when I was still a TV critic, and I remember watching an episode of EastEnders. I had to do that in those days. It's a real joy. I never have to watch it anymore. But the Queen Vic pub, you know, in Albert Square, you know, where those down-to-earth cockneys go, they had EU night so that all the local cockneys could protest about Brexit.
Oh. Ridiculous.
That's the BBC for you. But it's not only the BBC, Amy, that are going mad in this respect, are going mad on the altar of wokery. When we come back after these messages, after this break, we're going to talk about Shakespeare's birthplace in Stratford-on-Avon, which is being decolonised because the Bard's plays apparently encourage white supremacy. Of course they do. We'll talk about this in just a little while. Stay where you are, folks.
and obviously to promote Shakespeare, to preserve properties where tourists would come who are presumably interested in Shakespeare and perhaps might even appreciate Shakespeare. And therefore, this is another example of an organization that has been tempted into undermining its own purpose. I mean, they're actually staging Bollywood dance workshops.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. Well, I was going to the football yesterday. I was sitting in the pub having a drink before Fulham destroyed Spurs. A nice sunny Sunday down there by the River Thames, looking across the Thames, glass of wine, lovely. Going through my copy of the Sunday Telegraph. That's what I do in pubs. I read the Sunday Telegraph. Not always, but I happened to yesterday. And there's this story, which I just couldn't resist tweeting, that Shakespeare's birthplace in Stratford-on-Avon, don't they call it Anne Hathaway's cottage or something, is to be decolonized because apparently the Bard's plays, Amy, encourage white supremacism. Well, I'll take, your response.
It's absolutely ridiculous. It's such an insult to Shakespeare. I mean, the people that will go to this place in Stratford-upon-Avon, his birthplace, will be fans of Shakespeare and who will love him and want to celebrate him. So the idea that as soon as you get there, that suddenly people are telling you that he's a white supremacist or that his plays are white supremacist, I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. The term white supremacist now seems to mean anything that involves a white person. I don't really know how you could argue that anything Shakespeare did was of any kind of racial supremacy. He actually tackled racism a lot in his plays. In Othello, we see a mixed race couple. We see the baddie, Iago, who's a white man, being racist to Othello, who's a character you kind of admire, certainly in the first half of the play. And in Merchant of Venice, he tackles anti-Semitism, and there's a famous speech where one of the characters says, "We all bleed the same," meaning that we're all of the same race, and we shouldn't worry about our differences. And just broadly speaking, Shakespeare is loved universally. His work is something that brings people together all across the world. People of different cultures know Shakespeare, and it's the one thing that we can all get together and say, we know some of those quotes or we know those plays. It brings people together, and this calling it white supremacist or even bringing race into it, it's taking something that we all love and dividing it and destroying it, which is what the woke always do. And it's just another example of them attacking our culture and attacking something that is loved, actually.
Yeah, and my question would be, who asks for this? Are you telling me that people who go to Stratford-on-Avon, tourists, maybe literature fans of Shakespeare's astonishing plays, go, the trouble with his birthplace, it just smacks too much of white supremacy. We need something done about this. Who the hell asks for this? This place, the Shakespeare Birthplace Trust, which runs the kind of house there, and I think there are neighbouring properties as well, as a kind of museum, a shrine to the Bard's memory. This trust was established in 1847. In 2022, for reasons best known to themselves, they got together with Dr. Helen Hopkins of Birmingham City University, and she found that presenting this playwright, this white playwright, as a sort of universal genius, benefits the ideology of white European supremacy. So this awful little Philistine, Dr. Helen Hopkins, basically said, this Shakespeare guy, he's overrated. It's just a white thing. We've got to stop saying he's a universal genius. Well, Dr. Hopkins, I got problems for you there, because he is a universal genius. But, my point is why do these organisations like the Shakespeare Birth Trust get together with idiots like Dr. Helen Hopkins and decide the Shakespeare is a white supremacist? Why do they do this? Who asks them to do this?
I don't think anyone asked them to do this. I just think they're just very out of touch. And you're right to call these people Philistines. They're often very low-grade academics who aren't very smart. It's actually quite difficult to say something interesting and new about Shakespeare. So much has been written about him. If you actually wanted to create an event or an institution in an original way, you'd have to do a lot of hard work. You'd have to really understand the text. You'd have to know kind of the history. You'd have to know what all other academics have also said. And it's so much easier just to say, I know what I'll do. I'll just call him a white supremacist and I'll say we need to decolonize it. And then you look like you're superior. You look like you're really clever. You know what you're doing, and you haven't actually put the work in at all. And I think people just sort of think, well, we need to do something different, and we need to show that we're with the times. So we'll get an academic in who's nowhere near as smart as she thinks she is, who thinks she's superior, and actually what she's doing is very lazy, actually. And then we'll just say, we'll talk a bit about decolonization, and we'll look like we're going along with the fashions of the day. And it just puts so many people off. It's boring, it's not interesting. You can't decolonize Shakespeare. Shakespeare's never been colonized. I don't even know how you would go about decolonizing Shakespeare. It just usually means just attacking him and just destroying things. That's all it means, and nobody benefits from that.
It's moronic. Dr. Hopkins, I would suggest, as you say, Amy, is not the sharpest pin in the pack. She found that reverence of Shakespeare, you don't want to revere that guy. I mean, it's just a playwright, come on. Reverence of Shakespeare, she said, forms part of, and I quote, the white Anglo-centric, Eurocentric and increasingly West-centric worldviews that continue to do harm in the world today. In other words, Shakespeare's plays are some kind of vector through which white supremacy prevails. I mean, Dr. Hopkins needs to get out a bit more, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does. Just because something is good or better doesn't mean it does harm. We do have a cultural supremacy in a way here in England, because we have produced the best writers, from Chaucer to Milton, Dickens, Wordsworth. People around the world study English literature. We should be proud of that. And I think again it comes back to this idea of multiculturalism, that you can't say one culture is better than the other, or one country or culture has produced more better artists or writers than another. And these woke types, these woke academics, they have to attack anything that we are proud of or anything that is good.
That's right. That's exactly what they're doing. They're undermining British tradition. This is a classic example of it. Amy, got to go now, but thank you very much. Excellent stuff. Amy Gallagher, commentator for the New Culture Forum there. When we come back, Kinsey Schofield on that real-life soap opera involving Meghan.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. In about 20-25 minutes, we'll be taking your calls. You know what we're talking about. The benefits crisis. £320 billion a year we're handing out free to people. Many of them deservedly, many of them undeservedly. Why are we giving free cars to 815,000 people who say they've got disabilities? But I mean, you know, even if they're genuine, 815,000 free cars. 1 in every 5 cars is bought by the government to hand out free or very heavily subsidised to people with disabilities on benefits. Now, if they're mental disabilities, what are they talking about? Why do you, if you've got depression, why do you need a car? Why shouldn't you buy your own car if you've got depression like I should? You've got a physical disability, maybe, but mental? 815,000 cars? What's that about? 03444991000. Asylum seeker appeals are up by 500%, making the backlog even worse and packing out more and more expensive hotels, as opposed to what the government promised, that they'd stop the use of hotels to accommodate migrants. More and more migrants are in hotels as we process more and more of their appeals against getting kicked out of the country. Once a court decides to kick them out of the country, why don't we just do that? Maybe give them one appeal, but after that you're out. But instead they appeal until they're allowed to stay. 03444991000. And we are owed, don't you think, a full investigation into the Speaker of the House, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, who spaffed £250,000 worth of taxpayers' money on glamorous globe-trotting trips around the world in 2 years of jet-setting fantastically, expensively, and who now stands accused of giving one of his mates a free common security pass. This is one of the guys who underwrit one of his free trips to Gibraltar. And we spent £36,000, by the way. We were charged £36,000 for a portrait of this guy. I don't want to even see him in real life yet, let alone in a picture. What's going on? We deserve an investigation into the activities, the profligate activities of our Speaker, don't we? 03444991000. How do you think Reform UK are going to get on May the 1st, come the local elections and that by-election in Runcorn? Can they get over their Rupert Lowe difficulties? 03444991000. The polls look like they're going to do well. Will they be able to put the Rupert Lowe affair behind them? And if you are a Reform UK supporter, what do you think about the fact that Rupert Lowe calls for mass deportations of illegal migrants, people who came here illegally, who've got no right to be here? Nigel Farage and the gang basically saying, no, it's not going to be possible. So if you get Nigel Farage, you don't get mass deportations. If you get Rupert Lowe, you do. Whose side are you on with that? 03444991000. Now, let's get to royal matters. Let's go straight across all the way to the West Coast to talk to our excellent royal expert guru, Kinsey Schofield. Hi, Kins.
Hi, Kev. I'm like sitting here just refreshing, waiting for the Prince Harry papers to drop. I don't know if I've ever been so excited for something in my life.
Yeah, so tomorrow that happens. Let's get on to that in a minute, because you and I have discussed it before, that there's been a long case by the Heritage Foundation, a Washington think tank, which maintains that the American people have a right to see Harry's visa application. Not because they expect that to be afforded to everybody, but this guy came into America to live there, had to fill out a visa application to reside in your fine country, God's own country. And if you take drugs, you're not allowed to even go to America, let alone live there. Illegal drugs, that is. So did he declare that on his visa application? We're not sure what's going to be redacted, but we've got high hopes. We're going to find out tomorrow. Is he a liar? Did he claim he's never taken drugs and therefore lied on his form? Or did he admit to taking drugs, in which case why was he allowed in? Because I wouldn't be allowed in. So we'll come to that in just a little while. But let's talk about With Love Meghan, the triumphant cooking show that Meghan treated us to a Instagram post with her arms in the air. Yeah, Netflix.
Wait, did you see those? Did you see the chat I just sent you? She made.
Yeah. We're gonna come to it. We're gonna put it up on screen.
Do we have to?
Yeah, we're going to. We're going to. Oh, there it is. There it is. That is her. That is someone has been sick on a plate there, and Meghan calls that a dish. Oh, no, it is actually a dish. I think it's her St. Patrick's Day dish, isn't it?
What have her children done to deserve this? I mean, that's, at 6 a.m., that scares the heck out of me.
What is it? I mean, is that a green sludge or something? My God. Well, listen, here's the thing, though. She treated us to this Instagram post. Oh, my show With Love Meghan is so successful that Netflix has commissioned a second series. No, they haven't. No, they haven't. They already had a second series in the can, and they're going to stick it out a bit later. The fact of the matter is that after only 526 world views around the world, 26,000 views in 5 days, Netflix have had enough of this couple. They've had enough of her, and they're all set to axe her $100 million contract. So that contract, Netflix, as we always said, is about to hit the rocks, isn't it?
Allegedly. Yeah. I mean, I think we've always known it wasn't going to be the $100 million. First of all, Vanity Fair says it was never $100 million. That sounds like something that was leaked from the Sussex camp to attract more money, to attract more people that thought that that's what their value was. But after they crashed and burned with Spotify, I think it really tainted their value. But, there's the new theory floating around Hollywood today is that Netflix will, allow their relationship with Prince Harry to expire, but they are holding on tightly to Meghan. Of course, she's not going to get a deal similar to the one she got with Prince Harry, but they will continue to work with Meghan in hopes that if there is a divorce, they would get the exclusive and pounce on that access to Meghan, because they know that that's the next big thing that would sell.
But that's it. But this is on a show-by-show basis. So
yes.
If she's got an idea for a series, or indeed on the outside chance they might have an idea for a series for her, then they'll work together again. But it's not like here's a big contract that we're going to hand you. It's just if they make a series, she'll get paid. But apart from that, she's not really going to have a contract like
this is humiliating, Kevin. Yeah, this is embarrassing, because remember when she was at the Variety Power of Women's Awards, she walked that red carpet and she did some media towards the end and talked about how she was so excited for what was happening at Netflix, and that people could, I mean, it took a year for Polo to come out, but that was the first thing to come out after she teased some exciting content coming up with Netflix. She wants to be in the same room with Shonda Rhimes, creator of Grey's Anatomy and Bridgerton and all of these amazing things. Netflix did sign Shonda Rhimes to a similar deal where they said, we just want you. We don't care what you bring to the table. We want you. Here's an ungodly amount of money, and you're going to develop things for us. Meghan, like with a stroke of luck and very little talent or any sort of proof to back up that she was capable of doing something similar, got a similar deal to somebody like Shonda Rhimes, who is a proven success, who has created multiple shows that you stop you in your tracks. And so this is a huge humiliation to Meghan, because she considered herself in the same league as people like Shonda Rhimes that get these deals, where Netflix says, we don't care, we trust you, just go for it. They put their trust in the wrong team when it comes to Harry and Meghan.
Yeah, and the stories that emerged, I think it was on Saturday, soon after we'd talked a couple of days earlier. The story sort of began with Netflix bosses want to keep ties with the Sussexes. Now, the translation of that is Netflix bosses are severing ties with the Sussexes. In other words, up until now, they've had a very lucrative contract, and from now on, or fairly soon, they won't have a contract. If Meghan wants to make a series and Netflix like it, maybe they'll let her. Maybe Netflix might have an idea for her. But they'll do it on a show-to-show basis. There won't be any more cover-all, comfortable, lucrative contracts. That contract is going to get axed.
And I don't think that they're going to find another outlet that's willing to give them such freedom, because everyone has learned a lesson here, and it's that Harry and Meghan are not reliable. Their work ethic is lacking, and their collaboration skills lack as well. Unless you read People magazine, which Meghan Markle continues to purge to repeatedly, you are taking the reports in the Hollywood Reporter and Vanity Fair as something to seriously consider, and that's that Harry and Meghan are difficult to work with and for, and so you're going to do it cautiously going forward. And I think everybody going forward, because in the podcast that is currently trending, where this Hollywood Insider says, look, I think that Netflix will probably keep a hold of Meghan and the Sussexes because they want the divorce exclusive. That individual also says that there will be other streaming platforms that appeal to, that Harry and Meghan appeal to. And I would say, we know that Harry was talking to Jeff Bezos and Amazon Prime Video, about an Invictus game project before he signed with Netflix. He has worked with Apple Plus before. We saw them take the red carpet for, they've never taken a red carpet for any of their projects, but they did take the red carpet for a Paramount Plus project. And the Paramount Plus, I think one of the suits at Paramount Plus, his wife is actually in with Love Meghan. So we know that there are other opportunities for them in the streaming world, but I don't think that anyone will ever blindly trust the Sussexes in the way that Netflix did. I think some pretty expensive lessons were learned throughout this process, and everything, no matter who they work with, will be on a case-by-case basis going forward.
Yeah, and don't forget, she now has this backdrop of pretty much solidly proved allegations against her that she's a terrible bully to her staff. That would be reports back in Britain, emails written by senior members of palace staff to her then Majesty of the Queen, the late Queen, and to various other executives at Buckingham Palace and the other palaces, that she bullied her staff. Then, of course, the Hollywood Reporter back in September ran interviews with 11 former employees. I think one was still a current employee of Archwell up in Montecito, saying she was a tyrant in high heels who reduced grown men to tears. And then, of course, last month, January, actually it's 2 months ago, isn't it now, technically, the January edition of Vanity Fair, 8,000-word article, again confirming she's one hell of a bully to her staff. One member of staff talking about having to go into long-term therapy, having worked for her. So she's got that as the backdrop. I don't think she's got a toxic reputation now in Hollywood. I don't think she's going anywhere fast, to be honest with you. We'll probably come back to that in just a little while, but let's talk about that ginger husband of hers. What's his name? Harry. What's he doing now? Looks like nothing whatsoever, but then again, I guess he's used to that. He now is facing problems with his visa, as you said at the beginning of our chat. So what's the chronology? Tomorrow we find out from, is it a Washington court? exactly what we will be able to see in his visa application. What are we expecting there, Kinsey?
Well, it could be as early as today. They have until tomorrow to release it. And the redactions that were suggested by the Trump administration, those were approved by the judge. Now, this is the Trump administration now, but it was the Biden administration that was initially protesting this release. It does feel like a clear shift due to regime change, that not only the judge that was appointed by Donald Trump changed his mind. Basically, a few months ago, he was saying that all of this should be protected. Now he's changed his mind and said, sure, release it. Yeah. But he's approved the redactions that were suggested by the Department of Justice. And we don't know. I think within the next 24 hours, I think we'll have some insight as to what's actually been included, but we do know that there are heavy redactions on this paperwork. The ultimate objective and what the Heritage Foundation is asking to know, and I think it would be silly to release it without this information, is whether Prince Harry lied on his visa application to enter the United States about whether or not he was a past or current drug user. And if he didn't lie, then is there proof that Prince Harry was given special treatment to enter the United States? And if so, why? I think the Heritage Foundation will push to know if he was given special privileges. How did they determine, and why did they determine to do that? You know, he's not our prince. He's the prince of a foreign country. And then I also think that if he did lie, of course, everybody's going to have a meltdown, but you and I have discussed it before. Trump is obsessed with the British royal family. I don't think he would jeopardize that relationship by deporting Prince Harry and pushing him back off on his ailing father. And you don't deserve that either, Kevin. What have you done to Meghan Markle back in the UK?
Yeah, let's hope Trump doesn't kick him out, because you can have him. But I think Trump won't. I think you're right.
But sources have said he would prosecute, which is scary, I think.
He'll be fine. He'll get like kind of 2 years in San Quentin. What do you think?
Yeah. Just a slap on the hand.
Yeah, I mean, but I think, you know, he's an entitled little so-and-so. You know, he's really up his own backside. You know, he loves himself, thinks he's important, thinks he's entitled. This will slap him.
How are you not when your wife wakes you up on St. Patrick's Day with a green waffle?
Yeah.
You know?
Let's have a look at this again. I didn't really look at that. For the people who are just listening, it's kind of this green circle with some more green snot around the outside and some vomit around it. It's all on a plate, and apparently Meghan served that up to her poor kids for St. Patrick's Day. It does prove...
Imagine taking this picture into a Netflix meeting and saying, I want to pitch you a show about me cooking.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Now, by the way, while we're back on the subject of Meghan, she's given another one of her interviews, hasn't she, to her favourite magazine, People magazine, where she's desperately trying to stress that she's just another hard-working mom, you know, trying to get through life, raising her kids, just a normal woman. Don't think anybody's going to really buy that, are they?
Confessions of a Friendless Duchess with People magazine's telephone number is what the podcast should be called. I mean, clearly she is just desperate to talk to somebody. I saw somebody that is not in the necessarily royal community space complaining about her today, more of a pop culture commentator. And he was like, oversaturated. We are oversaturated with her right now. What is she thinking? And I thought that was a really good way to explain this. The more she tries to shove this down our throats, the more we reject it.
Yeah.
You know, people have made their mind up about her. They don't like her. And it's not because of a media narrative. It's because of the Oprah Winfrey interview turned Netflix original series, Harry and Meghan, turned Spare. You know, and somebody might say, well, Spare's Prince Harry's, but I'm pretty sure that Meghan Markle gave him permission to put her personal text messages with Catherine, the Princess of Wales, in ink in his book. Otherwise, we would have bigger problems at home. So I feel like she's behind all of it. And I just don't think people have the patience today with everything that's going on between wars and gas prices and everything that we're having to deal with to sit back and swallow her narrative.
Yeah.
So what she's trying to give us.
You mean you don't think it's important that we know how to make ladybird-shaped canapes, or how to freeze edible flowers into ice cubes? You don't think that's important?
No, or that when she went to yoga class by herself last week, she said hi to one stranger.
Wow.
Like, I'm sorry, that doesn't convince me.
Talk about down to earth, keeping it real.
Yeah, thank you, Mother Teresa. Can't wait to fist bump you next yoga class. Like, no, that's just not to try to explain to people that you are a normal person by saying that you once went to a yoga class by yourself. I'm sorry, but that's just not gonna cut it. And she keeps saying, like, she's so happy to be back. She's so happy to be back. Meghan, you've had 5 years. That's a child that knows the alphabet and perhaps some multiplication. I don't know. But 5 years is a long time. We're assuming you found your freedom quite some time ago. Stop acting like you stepped out of Windsor Castle yesterday.
Yeah, she's got this mania, hasn't she? The more she palpably fails, and pretty much everything they've ever done has failed, the more she fails, the more she gets manic about, like, trying to succeed. So every time she gets slapped down, she's back up again in your face with, hey, I've got, like, my Paddy's Day vomit dish. Look at that. Isn't that brilliant? I speak to people outside the school. Watch my shows. Aren't I? I've got another series. No, you haven't. So on and so forth. It's this mania. She's got to be a star. She's got to succeed. And the more she tries, the more she fails. And you have to wonder what's going on in that marriage. Meanwhile, Harry, you just never hear of these days, do you? I mean, what is going on in that marriage, do you think?
It really truly gives multi-level marketing, like pyramid scheme, like her banging on every door, like, please, please, like, buy my products. What's going on? I think that, Vanity Fair laid it out pretty clearly, if you ask me. Prince Harry is happy to be the stay-at-home dad, kicking back, playing video games, smoking a bowl, and Meghan's the hustler. And I think that, Prince Harry will step outside every once in a while to shake hands and smile for the camera and say, I showed up to support these.
Of course he smiles for the camera, he's stoned.
Yeah, exactly. He's seeing double. He's excited.
Okay, all right. I mean...
But I just think that he's okay with her being the breadwinner, and maybe that manic episode that we're sensing is the pressure on her shoulders to pay the security bills, because that's where Prince Harry's paranoid.
And indeed, but to go back to that visa issue, I mean, how dim is Harry for revealing his drug use in his nasty little book Spare? I mean, how stupid.
And throughout all the interviews. He said, with that Gaber Matisse, I'm so sorry if I'm slaughtering his name, but the doctor, Gabe Matisse, or what, that he's a very well thank you. God bless. With him, Prince Harry says, I'm still doing some of these illegal substances, the ayahuasca, whatever that is.
Yeah.
He said that
magic mushrooms he likes. He said he didn't like cocaine much, but so we'll take him as his word there. I suppose in California, marijuana is now legal, but it wasn't at the time he boasted about using it. And And I want to tell you, I want to say to you so badly that I think that he has the smarter people that will manage this for him and take care of him, and wouldn't have allowed him to mess up in the form of putting something on a piece of paper that wasn't true. But Meghan just resubmitted as ever trademark paperwork because she forgot to sign it
again. So they kicked
Forgot
it back
to
to
sign
her
it, yeah.
again, costing her thousands of dollars again. So I don't know about the people that are around them supporting them, because this is not the first time Meghan Markle has submitted trademark paperwork without a signature, without it completed.
Didn't she do that with
thousands of dollars.
She did that with American Riviera Orchard, didn't she? What's the matter with her? Sign your forms, Meghan. But Harry, you know, if he ends up in big trouble over his visa application, he'll only have himself to blame. You know, it's a bit like saying, did I ever tell you about the time I robbed the Bank of America, got away with $1 million? It's amazing. You know, write it in your book and expect nobody to come down on you. I mean, he revealed this, and now he's in trouble because of it. If he ends up in big trouble, maybe even getting kicked out of the country or prosecuted, maybe he'll look at himself in the mirror and realise what we all know, what everybody else knows about him. He's pretty damn thick. He's pretty dim. He's dumb.
They were so blinded by rage, resentment, anger, and bitterness when they left the country. Do you remember that vile video of him, his selfie video, where he's calling it their freedom flight?
Yeah, I do.
They kick off the reality show with. They were so full of rage that they made so many mistakes, Kev, and they continue to make mistakes because their heart is not in the right place. Meghan Markle just wants to be famous and wants to have a lot of money. I believe she's a very greedy individual, and I think Prince Harry is just so resentful that he's the spare, which by all accounts that by everyone that I speak to tell me that he didn't even realize that was the case until Meghan started speaking up, saying, why aren't we getting this? Why aren't we getting that? And to me, that's another example of the greed.
Yeah. Well, he's going to find out what happens to him tomorrow, I believe. So that'll be interesting. You and I will talk. I believe we have a date on your excellent podcast. Recollections may vary. Sounds like we're going to have a lot to talk about, Kinsey. So I look forward to that. And thanks very much for tonight, as always. Brilliant stuff. That's Kinsey Schofield over there on the West Coast. Now, next up, we're going to take your calls, and I'll read some of your messages and some of your WhatsApp voice notes. So lots still to come. Stay tuned.
And obviously to promote Shakespeare, to preserve properties where tourists would come who are presumably interested in Shakespeare and perhaps might even appreciate Shakespeare. And therefore, this is another example of an organization that has been tempted into undermining its own purpose. I mean, they're actually staging Bollywood dance workshops.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. I've got some voice notes, got lots of text messages and lots of calls. Let's take a call first. Lisa in Cardiff. Hello, Lisa.
Good evening, Kevin. Thank you. Great show as always.
Thank you.
Right, on the subject of why people choose not to work.
Yeah.
First of all, I despair with what's happened to our wonderful country.
Yep.
Maybe it's an age thing. I'm 56 this year. My parents worked. My grandparents worked. My great-grandparents worked. We all worked.
Used to be the system, Lisa. Yeah, we all kind of went to work. Yeah.
Right? I've worked since I was 16. Right? How you could not work is anathema to me. What would you do with your time? I would go insane if I didn't work.
Well, look, the thing about benefits, as I say, we're spending £320 billion a year in benefits, in welfare payments. Now, particularly when you're talking about disability payments, things like that, a lot of people deserve them. You know,
absolutely.
A decent Western democracy should look after the poor, the underprivileged, and the vulnerable. But what we know for damn sure here is that loads of these people getting disability benefits, this thing called PIP, was it personal independent payments and all that, swinging the lead. They're lying, particularly those claiming mental health. And again, some people genuinely with severe mental health problems deserve all the help they can get. But if I go to the doctors or to an assessor, sometimes on the phone, and just say, I'm depressed and I've got anxiety, why am I being written?
I've got all that, but I still work.
But they're getting written off for their entire lives, and then they're getting free cars. What is that about?
The point about the free cars, right? I've got a stepmother, and I take her. She's got a mobility. She's got a disabled badge. She doesn't drive. So when she's with me, and I take her shopping, we're trying to find a space, and all these disabled spaces are filled with these huge electric vehicles.
I'll bet they are, yeah. BMWs, apparently you can get BMWs on this scheme.
But, going back to, I spoke to Nick Dubois, I think last year sometime, about the benefit system, and I think it's terribly negative, because I think what people do in the centre say, they say, I can't do this, I can't do that. I say, what can you do? There's loads of things these people can do.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing, Lisa. I've been listening to a lot. I've been listening to talk all day. Lots of people phoning up, apparently imagining that the idea of the story, that the central point of this story is that it can be very difficult to get your benefits, and you have to fill out lots of forms, and I'm really entitled to it, but the next guy isn't. I think they're missing the point. What the problem with this country is we're giving welfare and benefits to way too many people. 1.2 million people under the age of 25 signed off for sickness, long-term sickness benefits. 1 in 4 people under 25 deciding that they will never work in their lives. 1 in 10 working age people deciding they will never work in their lives generally. That's people who aren't necessarily under the age of 25. The COVID crisis, the long-term welfare payments that we got basically recalibrated the mindset of this nation. And I fear many people have just become lazy and we've made it too easy for people to be able to fund their lifestyle on the back of the state. It's all wrong. Lisa, thanks for an excellent call. I'm with you all the way. Lisa in Cardiff there. Let's go to break. When we come back, more calls, more messages. Stay where you are.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back. A fairly long text from Claire. I'll just read the beginning of it, but you'll get the point. She says, loving the show as always. Thank you, Claire. As far as mass deportations and Nigel Farage saying they are implausible are concerned, well, Trump is doing just that now. If Trump can do it, we can do it. And if the economics are brought into this, one only has to look at the cost of each migrant and their hangers-on families per year. Each migrant's costing us £40,000. So if you get a boat full of, I don't know, 60 migrants coming across, 60 times 40,000, that's how much it will cost us in the next year. Don't ask me to do those sums, but you're talking about millions. And that's every boat. Every boat is costing us a fortune. Millions and millions and millions, billions of pounds our migrant crisis cost us. But there you are. So should we deport everybody here who's illegally? What do you think? 03444991000. Nigel Farage says we can't. It's just practically implausible. I've got some sympathy with that. It'll be difficult, very difficult. But is Rupert Lowe right when he says, well, we should just do it? I mean, Trump, I'm not sure if he's achieving mass deportations right now, but that is his plan. He says he can do it. Why can't we do it? 03444991000. Let's go back to the phones. Let's talk to Les in Cheshire. Hello, Les.
Hi, Kev. How are you doing?
I'm all right. What would you like to say?
Yeah, well, I recently retired, and I've been given a state pension, which is £230.25 a week. Now, I've paid into the system, so that's what I'm entitled to.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, being a pensioner now, and they cancelled the eating costs at £300 a year, they're telling us to actually go for pension credit.
Right.
Now, I've gone for pension credit, and I've just read today, I've got a letter in the post saying I'm entitled to £73.07 a week.
You're going to get 73 quid a week. What is this again? What's
pension credit?
Pension credit. You're going to get that plus your normal pension.
Yeah.
And is that because you said that you needed extra money because of the axing of the winter fuel allowance? Is that it?
Correct. Yeah. So that's £3,799.64 a year, based on £300 that was going to give us in the first place. But now we've gone for pension credit. They're giving us £3,799. It doesn't make any sense.
Have you got the form, Les? Did you have to fill in the form?
Yeah.
How many pages was it?
To be honest, it's yes, no, yes, no.
But it's quite a few pages, isn't it? I heard 28 pages or something like that.
So it's so easy to fill in. It's so easy to fill in online, and you can do it on your phone if you've got a smartphone. However, the thing is...
Well, a lot of people saying that it's not. Yeah, I mean, you're a smart guy, but a lot of people have found it very difficult. But carry on.
If people aren't really that smart on the smartphone or on the computer or whatever, you can get people to do it. But what I'm saying is that because they cancelled the £300 a year payment for the...
No, I get it. They would have given you £300. Yeah, now they're giving you more than 3,000. Hey, happy days, mate. Happy days.
Well, yeah, it is happy days, but at the end of the day, it didn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense. It's incoherent. I agree.
I'm also in receipt of PIP.
Oh, you get PIP as well, yeah?
Yeah, I get the full enhanced rate on both accounts. Now, that's because I've got osteoarthritis and RSI, and also I suffer from other problems like sleep apnea, diabetes, etc., etc. However, the misconception in relation to people getting a car is based out of that money coming out of that PIP payment in order to get that car. The government doesn't give you the car.
Yeah, but they get that you take some money out of the PIP payment. Yeah, and then I'm sure you deserve it. But I know for damn sure 815,000 of these cars were given out last year, and if you pay enough in, you can get a brand new Mercedes Sports. Why would people on disability benefits, on PIP if you like, why would they need a BMW Sport?
Well, no, look.
I would say, Les, we need to look into this very, very seriously, and we are giving away far too many free cars or cars, heavily subsidised cars. 1 in 5 new cars is given away under this Motability scheme. That's mad. That is mad.
These top-marked cars, who people have got them on mobility, have paid up an upfront payment of them, which could be anything between £4,000 and £7,000 to pay up front to get this mobility car. Now, if them people are paying that amount of money, they need to look at them people who are paying that amount of money up front in order to get that.
I think we need to look at giving out free cars generally. We're giving out too many. It's ridiculous. This is a massive scandal. 815,000 cars being given away every year. Think of the cost of that. It's mad. It's crazy. Les, I've got to move on. Excellent call, though. Thank you very much. Les in Cheshire. I've got some WhatsApp voice notes. We better play a couple now, or at least one. They're all on the benefits crisis. This is Jerry on that very crisis.
Why don't the government make these people get work? The council services are all collapsing around about our ears. Get them out filling potholes, cutting grass, emptying bins, anything at all. And I can guarantee you, if you get the guys out there working for 30 hours a week, for whatever it is they get nowadays, you can bet your bottom dollar they will want to get into work. Guaranteed. They get it far too easy nowadays.
Well, it's a nice idea, Jerry. I just think a lot of these people are congenitally lazy. They're layabouts. This system is being conned. It's being gamed, probably by millions of people. certainly huge numbers of people are conning the state into giving them benefits, giving them cars when they don't deserve them. And we, us taxpayers, hard-working taxpayers, we're funding all of this. Something has to be done, and it has to be done quick. Before we go to break, another WhatsApp voice note. This one, again, on benefits, is from Ian.
It's a really sad thing to say. I'm 60, I'm retired, paid my taxes all my life, took a gamble on a property, did very well on that and paid a massive amount of capital gains tax over to the government, and now it's been squandered, given away to people who are too feckless. And I've started to hate this country. I hate the way that our political class are driving the indigenous population, or the working person, I should say, into the ground. And they're just doing nothing about all the problems we have. We're governed by complete charlatans.
It's a really good point, Ian, and I think what you say about the political class, that's what we've had enough of. I think Sir Lindsay Hoyle, the Speaker, is the epicentre of this. These entitled politicians, the political class, who think they can just take our money, as in the form of ever-increasing taxes, and just spend it like drunken sailors on all of this be-kind nonsense. Migrants, presents, free gifts for migrants, free cars for anyone who wants one. It's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. 1.2 million kids under the age of 25 being signed off for life, never have to work again. Why? Oh, I've got anxiety, I'm depressed, I'm stressed. I mean, come on. Got to stop this nonsense. It's not a kindergarten. No, you're depressed, you've got anxiety. Tough luck. So are a lot of us. Get to work. Simple as that. Give free cars if you like, or subsidised cars to people with genuine physical disabilities, but mental disabilities? Why do you need a car if you're depressed or anxious? Why do you need a car then? I mean, come on, 03444991000. Let's go to break, come back, take some more calls, read some more messages. Stay where you are.
And obviously to promote Shakespeare, to preserve properties where tourists would come who are presumably interested in Shakespeare and perhaps might even appreciate Shakespeare. And therefore, this is another example of an organization that has been tempted into undermining its own purpose. I mean, they're actually staging Bollywood dance workshops.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Free driving lessons for and tests for migrants, for asylum seekers, particularly in Kent, £20,143 and 83p, I think it was, 86p or something, over the last year. 20,100 more than that over the past year. This is not a name on this, but I think it sums up what a lot of us think. Our daughter was born 17 years ago. We have saved from day one to put her through driving lessons and hopefully pass her test. I've had to top up what we save each month, as the cost of driving lessons are now a lot more than we anticipated. How is this fair? That despite paying my taxes, earning very little and doing these things the correct way, I have to pay for my daughter's driving lessons, and asylum seekers get them for free. It's a very good point, isn't it? I mean, what is going on? It's just crazy what's happening in this country. Final WhatsApp voice note, not a name on this one, another anonymous one, but it's about benefits.
During lockdown, me and my husband both lost our jobs and we had to claim universal credit. We were given £900 a month to live on. £600 went to rent. That left us £300 for the month. So out of that money, we had to pay gas, electricity, water, food, everything else. How does not working pay? Because I don't understand.
Well, I don't know your name, but it was a very good WhatsApp voice note. Put your name on it next time, and I just think it's just a tragedy. I mean, whatever your name is, the problem is that there are great incentives for not working. You're not used to it because you're a hard worker, but people who are good at the benefits game, good at the welfare racket, know how to claim, and they can afford themselves very nice lifestyles without doing a stroke of work. Lazy scroungers, I think we call them, actually. Anyway, let's go back to the phones and talk to Jay in Hampshire. New caller, always like a new caller. Hi, Jay, what would you like to say?
Hi, Kev. Thank you so much for taking my call. I'm a bit nervous, but
don't worry.
All brief.
Yeah.
About just over 10 years ago, I survived a catastrophic stroke. I was in my late 30s. It took me about 3 years to get back to sort of being able to function and thinking about going back to work, and I did go back to work. I always appreciated PIP as an in-work benefit and as a benefit to help me to go back into work and to help me while I was in work, to pay for adaptation, to help me to afford home help, so that my husband wouldn't have to sort of step in all the time, and so he could concentrate on his career again. Also to help with non-NHS funded therapy, these things. So I've always been, apart from when I was really ill, I used PIP to go back to work.
Right. You refused PIP?
Yes.
And you went back to work, and did you find that was beneficial to you?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, work is a good thing. Work is good for your mental health, good for your physical health.
Yes, I'm a mental health nurse.
Are you now? Oh, well, you know all about that. And do you?
I very much do.
Yeah, and the West Streeting is right, Jay. You would know this. Look, no one is trying to undermine the importance of mental health issues, but we know for a fact that a lot of people are saying, I've got anxiety, depression and all that. They're just swinging the lead so they can get benefits. West Streeting is right. We overdiagnose people when it comes to mental health, right?
I feel, especially the young people, I feel there's been... It goes back to COVID. They've been locked up for, just over 2 years?
Yeah.
And they've lost their perspective.
Yes,
there's a lot
that's
of work
it.
still to be done.
Yeah. You're right. It's recalibrated the mindset of this nation, those lockdowns, and they've done a lot of damage, which is why we should never have locked down at all. Jay, I've got to move on, but that was an excellent first call. Don't make it your last. Call me again. Good to talk. Jay in Hampshire there. And very quickly, because Petri Hoskin will be in just a little while to tell you what she's got lined up for your entertainment from 10 p.m. until 1 a.m. But we've got time to squeeze in our last call, and that is Carl. He's calling from Birmingham. You want to ask about Speaker Mr. Lindsay or Sir Lindsay Hoyle, Carl?
Yes, okay, that's it. Who signs off the expenses when you go for a job? You produce a receipt for a meal. Who's signing off all this money for his foreign trips? I don't know who his boss is. That's a simple question, mate.
I suspect it's him.
So he signs himself off and go around a jet and do anything he likes.
Yeah,
I'm not saying we pay for it. Sorry, my friend, I haven't got much. But the thing is, who signs his expenses?
Well, as I say, I've got a feeling he probably signs them himself. I don't know for sure, Carl. It's a very good question, but whoever is signing them should have been a lot more careful. Because he has had way too many expenses on way too many glamorous globe-trotting trips that are hard to justify, to be honest with you. But you're right. We'll have a look into that, Carl. It's a good question. Who exactly does sign the expenses, not only of the Speaker, but of all MPs? We'll try and find out. Excellent question. Thanks for the call. Carl in Birmingham. I'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. with another edition of the Political Asylum. Be there or be square. In the meantime, it's Petri Hoskin. How are you doing?
Well, happy St Patrick's Day.
Of course. Hence you're green.
I wore it for you because you're an O'Sullivan.
I am Kevin O'Sullivan.
And I noticed that your shirt is sort of khaki green.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I can't pretend that that's why I'm wearing it.
Oh, I thought.
All right, this is it. I did this especially.
Yeah. I want to you. There you go. And for all of the Irish listeners and. What's happening? Hang
on, you've got some. Your mic is seriously playing up. Stop! Don't move around. That's all right. That's okay. That's all right. I think. No, it wasn't.
It's normally there.
That's okay. Just talk. No, don't move it around. What have you got coming up in your show?
I'm not going to tell you now. No, I was talking about the state of British politics when all of the infighting going on in all of the parties at the moment. So I'll be looking at that.
Yes.
And then as we learn that 18 million adults and children in England can no longer obtain an NHS dental appointment. Think of those numbers. 18 million people can't get a dentist appointment. So we'll be looking at that as well.
Yeah, it's a nightmare if you can't get a dental appointment and you've got a toothache.
What do you do?
There is nothing I know